Hello, everyone. Welcome to Child Safe Culture, how to move from reactive to a visible and consistent culture. I am super excited to be here with you today. And first, I would like to just have a huge thank you out to the amazing team at ACA Queensland, Raggy and Nelson. Nelson has walked me through making sure I am set up for success today. So thank you very much for this opportunity to connect with the early learning leaders that are joining us. This is a really important topic and it's pretty serious. So I understand what we're talking about today is child safe culture, which is obviously not a fluffy topic. And I know that you understand this because you've actually taken time out of your extremely busy day to be here. And during this hour that we have together today, my goal is to give you clarity, practical ideas, and a fresh way to think about culture. Not culture is something that is written in a policy folder, but culture as something your educators, families, and children can actually see, feel, and experience every day. We'll look at why many services stay stuck in reactive fixes, and I'm going to share with you the 4 costly culture mistakes that we keep seeing showing up in early learning and what needs to shift if you want your culture to become more visible and consistent and if what I share with you today resonates with you, I'll give you my details at the end and would love it for you to reach out. And also ACA Queensland will have some information to share with you after in an email. So you'll get some additional resources to make this topic a little clearer for you. So I'd like to start by kind of just really looking at this concept of why so many, or maybe not so many, but quite a large amount of early learning services are doing things that it's so close. You know, they've got the updated policies, the mandatory training, you've got your national register, you're doing what you're told to do. You've got more documentation, lots of procedures. But what we need to ask is, does that guarantee what actually happens inside your service and inside each of the rooms every day? So child safety doesn't only live in your policies, it lives in behavior. It lives in how your educators respond under pressure, how your team communicates to each other, what gets tolerated, and what gets reinforced, and what happens when leadership is not in the room. That is culture. And it is not enough to have policies just on paper. They must be lived in practice every day. So today, today is really about, looking at that gap between what is written down and what is actually lived in your service. Now, if you imagine an image is worth, like we all know that an image is worth 1,000 words, then think of, has anyone here ever played Jenga? I mean, I know you can't respond to me, but maybe you can give me a thumbs up if you've ever played Jenga. What happens if you actually pull out the base? Oh, we got some thumbs up. Yep, I love a bit of Jenga. What if you pull out the base while you're playing that game? It basically comes tumbling down, or at least it gets really unstable, doesn't it? And that means leadership and culture are not separate from child safety. If you see that standard number 1, culture, leadership, and culture, it's really the foundation that child safety is built on. And that is why culture can no longer be left to chance because it is the base. And if that base is weak, everything above it becomes inconsistent. So here's the actual legal definition of what standard one is. We're looking at child safety and well being that's embedded. Embedded. And that's the word I really want you to notice here. Embedded means it does not sit in one mandatory training session, it does not live only in a folder. It does not depend on one person reminding everybody to supervise, to be on, game on, all in. It becomes part of how the service operates every day. And if this other standards that are right above there, that are all so important, standards 2 through 10, if they are what you're meant to actually do, then standard one is how all those other standards actually happen. It is the leadership and culture engine underneath everything else. And this is why culture is not just a nice to have or something fluffy. Culture is the mechanism that helps expectations become daily practice. Leadership sets the standards, whether we mean to do it or not. So what you walk past, is what your team believes is actually acceptable. And what you repeat becomes what sticks. Also, what you ignore, that unfortunately grows. And what's so important is your team doesn't just follow policies, they actually follow patterns. So if we want child safe culture to be lived, we need to look at the patterns we are creating, allowing, and reinforcing. And culture is it's not what happens it's well, sorry, it is what happens when you're not there. And this is especially important for any approved providers in the room and managers and center directors because you just can't be there on site all the time. The real test is not what happens when you're standing in the room. The real test is, do standards hold across every room of your service? Do educators respond consistently? And do team members back each other? Or do they work in silos? This is what families feel immediately and what regulators eventually will see. So reporting, well, it only works if it feels safe, right? So you obviously have a reporting process, but if people do not feel safe to speak up, you do not have visibility. People need to trust that their concerns will not be brushed off. So trust is going to be an essential part of your culture, isn't it? And they need to know that leadership will respond consistently. And that is why culture matters so much. And reporting is not just a system, it's a feeling of safety. And everyone, might know what their responsibilities are, but do they actually own them? So accountability, again, links back to it's not necessarily just the policy, but it's that behavior, that ownership comes from culture, not your documents. And accountability is, like I said, it's not a policy, it's a behavior. It's who we're being while we're doing what we're doing. And standard one, it's not something that you add to your service. So I think this is a really important point. I want it to land. This is something that you lead every day. So let's take a quick look at what gets in the way of this. These are the patterns that I keep hearing from hundreds of conversations I'm having with early learning leaders. day in and day out. They're experiencing all of these. And this is across different services, different locations, and different leadership structures. Same themes, they just keep showing up. They don't have a structured culture system. There's a negative behaviors or cliques or gossiping is starting to come up. Leaders are burnt out. It's amazing how many, very experienced leaders I've talked to who are on the edge and deciding if they were actually going to leave the industry. So it's really heartbreaking to see that. So leader burnout is a big one. And then that inconsistent culture between the rooms. And then, of course, all of the extra pressure, it leads to that low morale, which is that flat energy and that loss of passion for what they do. And then, of course, this leads to your high turnover and then issues with retention and also most likely issues with attracting qualified educators that are a good fit for your service. And these challenges often lead leaders to reactive fixes. So here's where I'd like your feedback. I want to know what is happening for you. So we're going to do a quick question. Let me make sure I'm able to get this. Here we go. That come up. Mm-hmm. My question is, how much of your, oh, it was supposed to be what culture challenges are showing up most right now in your service. My polls are a little bit organized. Wait a second. Sorry, apologies. We are trying to get that right question to come up. Okay, so you should have the correct poll now. Let me share this. So it seems like leadership burnout is, and I'm not surprised about that because that's definitely what I'm hearing consistently. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Now, I'll get a little bit better at these polls here. Well, I want to share a little bit more about the mistakes that we're consistently seeing. And there's 4 of them that I'm going to cover off on today. And this is interesting that most of you are seeing that leader burnout because the number one mistake that we see is, I call it the culture backpack. And this is where the director or senior leader or leadership team, they're the person that is carrying the weight of culture. They carry the meetings, the morale, the reminders, the hard conversations, the appreciation, the team energy, the conflict, the follow-up. And because they care so deeply, they're carrying even more. But culture becomes too heavy when it's carried by one person. And if culture only sits on the director's shoulders, it's not yet embedded, is it? So it's dependent. And we know we want that to be embedded. So that is one of the biggest issues. So let's take a quick look, and I want to see what you think about. Okay, I'm sharing a new poll now. How much of your services culture is currently sitting on the director's or senior leader's shoulders? Is it started? I can't. An error keeps occurring. Sorry. I have an error. Okay. Nelson is working on that. I'll give him 1 more minute. 2 minutes. All right. We might have to come back to that. I will keep us going. But maybe we'll just do it in the, can we just get a thumbs up if you feel like it's sitting on, the culture is sitting on the shoulders of the director alone? Let me just get some sort of reaction from the group. All right. Yep. It's weird to see the flying thumbs up. And Samantha's got a little, shared something for me. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm really glad that you're here today, because it doesn't have to be shared on your shoulders. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Let me see. I don't think we got that working. Okay. We'll come back. Don't worry about that. Okay. Let's keep going, because I know your time is super busy. And all right. So let's go to mistake number 2. So this is, again, this probably the second most common mistake I see, besides leaders carrying it on their shoulders, is that people treat culture as like a one-off event, like a team building event. Oh, everyone's feeling down. We've got to do a team building event. Or, I've got a PD budget, so I'm going to throw that at my culture, right? And I say this as someone who's spent years speaking, facilitating, and actually leading culture sessions. One culture moment will not create consistency. A PD can spark the conversation. A Wellness Wednesday, that can lift the spirits for a moment. And a staff treat is really lovely and can bring on a smile. But without a plan, that buzz fades. And culture needs rhythm, it needs follow through, language, and ownership. Let me see if you agree with me on that. Show me some hearts if you agree that culture is more than just a one-off PD. Are there any hearts? We got a thumbs up. Yes. Maybe we don't have hearts, but I'm happy with a thumbs up. Cool. All right, so let's try. I'm going to go into my polls again, and that was a fun one. I love these little emojis. Let me see if they are working now. All right, so this is the result I wanted. Is that seems to be all out of order. We'll try this. Can you let me know, what have you tried? Okay, so we've got wellness. And I actually have heard so many people use Wellness Wednesdays, which it kind of sounds good. So I understand why we do that. I love things that are easy to remember. But staff treats, lots of that. Good. Okay. Motivational speakers. Some of you have done new team values. Cool. Looks like you're all trying something. I'm just going to, we've only got 24 of you that have voted, so let's keep going. Share your votes, share your votes. Let's see what we're doing. Okay. It seems like the staff treats and the morning teas and gifts, that seems to be a common way. So here's our results that I've got so far. Okay, excellent. I'm going to go back to my list and let's keep going. Saw something else come up in chat. Okay, no, it's just you guys with your thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right, good. So we are continuing here, and the mistake number 3 that we see so often, and I know with the extra pressure that's coming on right now, it's when the fun falls off the agenda. Now, obviously in early learning, the time that you have together as a team is very limited. So when your team comes together, that time is obviously so precious. And I hear this consistently about staff meetings, that when you are having them, it kind of becomes a laundry list of things to do and things to remind people of, policies to review, operational updates. And yes, those things of course matter. But if team time becomes only tasks, connection gets squeezed out and educators start to feel flat and that spark fades. So it's very important that we start to look at how we're going to shift that energy, because the children and the families will feel that energy shift if everybody's feeling the weight of the world. So your team time, it needs a culture plan, not just an agenda. Some items can happen in other ways. Maybe you could do stuff you might already be doing, staff notice boards, printed weekly updates, communication folders, room leader catch-ups or check-ins. I've talked with several that are using that umbrella approach, which I really like. And then also even like short video messages that are viewed obviously outside of child-facing time. Staff meetings should not just tell your team what needs fixing. They should remind your team of what they are building together. All right. And then mistake number 4, and I'll be interested to see what you think about this. Mistake number 4 is appreciation without anchors. And I want to be really clear here. Appreciation is essential. Please don't stop appreciating your team. Early learning leaders are some of the most generous people I know. And I hear leaders saying things like, we do morning teas, we celebrate birthdays, we buy chocolates, we give free coffees, we do little treats just because they're still not happy. And I know those gestures come from a beautiful place. But we need to pause and ask, are we over gifting and hoping it buys loyalty? Because if appreciation is not linked to values, behaviors, and the culture you want to strengthen, it can become random. And sometimes it can even reinforce poor behaviors. Appreciation becomes powerful when it recognizes values in action, or those child-safe behaviors in effect consistently. And it reinforces the behaviors that you want repeated. Obviously, those, especially the child-safe behaviors that we want to see consistently. Don't stop appreciating, start anchoring. All right. Many of the leaders that I've met with were in this state. They were just dealing with culture on the fly in a reactive way. And this is kind of, I think this image really describes what it feels like. And it's really when you're just focusing on putting out spot fires, repeating the same conversations, hoping the team gets it. And then you're still carrying culture alone. It feels heavy, messy, and dependent on one person, and that is exhausting. Here's the shift. We move from reacting to problems after they happen to leading culture on purpose. And when you do that, you're moving from hoping people get it to setting the standard, from carrying culture alone to creating shared ownership, from hidden expectations to visible expectations, from random moments to reinforcing what matters every day. Culture then starts to feel lighter when it's shared, visible, and led on purpose. Let me ask you another question. Hold on, see if I can do it this time. So the next question here is going to be, which area of your culture do you need the most help with now? Consistency, yes. Shared ownership. It's a game changer, rebuilding team energy, and building that consistent culture. I'm just letting you sit on this for a minute because I want you to just think about everything we've talked about so far. Okay, it looks like rebuilding team energy. I'll just seems to be the main one. All right, we can close that off. And we'll keep going. So when culture is consistent, it becomes visible for educators and families. And then it becomes lived every day and celebrated. And I'd like to share with you a reset tool because energy was one of the things that you mentioned with your team. I hope you will like this little reset tool that you can use straight away, whether you're an educator, room leader, center director, approved provider. You could all use this to reset from time to time because culture does not change in one giant moment. It changes in the small moments that are repeated consistently. So hopefully this could become a new habit for you to include, to reset. And I call it balloon. And it's easy to remember. So be where your feet are. Pause, be present. Notice what is actually happening. Are you responding intentionally or reacting on autopilot? L, lead with love and standards. This is the balance. You can care deeply and still hold expectations. Love without standards becomes inconsistency. And I see this quite often with the leaders I talk to. Everybody cares and they're walking that difficult line between I want to support my educators and show them how much I care. I'm being really flexible. I'm offering, different, I'm doing different things to make sure that their mental health is okay. But here's the thing, love without standards becomes inconsistency. Standards without love can be harsh. So lead with love and standards, okay? Optimize the moment. Culture is built in small, everyday moments. A quick conversation, a huddle, a reminder, a value moment, a behavior you chose not to walk past. The second O is going to be own your impact. Every leader and educator brings energy into the room. You bring energy into the service, into your conversations. Ask yourself, what am I bringing to this culture right now? And make it visible. If culture matters, make it visible in the language, meetings, onboarding, appreciation, expectations, daily conversations. The main thing is your small leadership moments repeated consistently are what's going to start to make culture visible. So I'm going to share this with you. It's a little resource like this. You'll actually get that emailed out. I hope that you find blooming to be fun and that you can live life in full bloom. Because, so let's think about it. What actually happens when you're living life in full bloom? These are when leaders stop leaving culture to chance and they start building it intentionally. And that is where my happy team culture system comes in. So for those of you who may not know me, I've been supporting leaders to create positive cultures where teams thrive and support each other for over 14 years now. And around 10 of those years, I've spent working with early learning services. I've had the privilege of speaking at many PDs and also conferences and weekend workshops. But what I've discovered is that one-off inspiration is not enough. Leaders consistently came back to me and said, we loved it. It was so much fun. It was inspirational. I feel energetic, but I need more. So leaders need a system. They need resources and they need support. And they need a way to bring their team along the journey with them. And that is why I created Happy Team Culture System. And we are currently supporting 89 early learning leaders and 30 services at this moment in our service. Some of the clients that I have on this screen, I've done some workshops with, but the majority of them are all Happy Team Culture clients. So I would love to help you, but the real question is, I want you to leave with something today. If leadership and culture are being assessed, right? And can I just ask you, are you confident your service can show that your culture is visible, consistent, and lived every day? Not just in policies, not just in a philosophy, but in your intentions and your team's intentions. But also in how your leaders lead, how educators communicate, how concerns are addressed, and how expectations are reinforced, and how your team understands, shapes, owns, and protects the culture. That's exactly why we created the Happy Team Culture System. It's not a one-off PD. It's not a proven, or it is a proven, sorry. It is a proven child-safe culture system with 5 months of personalized guided support to help leaders stop leaving culture to chance and start leading it with clarity. The system gives leaders a structure to follow, and gives educators a way to be invited into the process so that they can help understand, shape, own, and live that culture every day. Because when your team helps to create a culture, they are far more likely to be proud of it, to protect it, and to bring it to life. And I'm really excited to share a quote from one of our clients, Debbie at Oka Ninja. And this is a great example of what happens when culture becomes clear, calm, and shared. And she says that a calm, safe culture gave them clarity as leaders and confidence that what they were building will support their team, children, and families long term. And that is the outcome. No more pressure, more clarity, more confidence, more shared ownership, and more visible culture. And I'd love to invite you to book in a free culture clarity call with myself. And this is for approved providers, area managers, operations managers, or center directors. So if today has made you realize that your service has been relying on reactive fixes, one-off ideas, or one leader carrying culture alone, please don't ignore that. Because once you see that gap, you can't unsee it. And with Child Safe Standard 1, focusing on leadership and culture, this is not something to put in the we'll get to it later basket. Culture is not just a team morale issue. It impacts consistency, educator confidence, family trust, and the daily experience children have in your service. So if you are an approved provider, area manager, operations manager, or center leader, and you know your culture needs to become more visible, consistent, and lived every day, love to invite you to book in a free culture clarity call with me. This is not a, typical sales pitch disguised, as a call. It's a real focused conversation. And I've had people tell me that they kind of feel like it's a bit of a culture therapy call, because what we're going to get into is we'll look at what's currently happening in your service with your culture. We'll identify what the biggest gaps are or reactive patterns that may be in place. And then we'll uncover what you would love to see, what your dream culture would look like. And I will make a recommendation as to what your next best step could look like. And if I genuinely believe I can help you, I'll share with you how the Happy Team Culture System supports leaders to create child-safe culture where their team can understand, shape, own, and live it every day. If it's not the right fit, you'll still leave with, more clarity than you had before. Because we are getting busier and we do provide very high level support to our clients, my culture clarity calls are limited. So just have a few spots available for the coming weeks. So please don't wait until your culture becomes heavier, turnover gets worse, or leaders feel even more stretched. You can use this QR code to book in your call. And child safe culture is not something you find, it's something you create, lead, and make visible every day. And I just want to thank again ACA Queensland for hosting this important conversation. And thank you, beautiful early learning leaders and educators and approved providers, for showing up today. Now it's your turn to stop leaving culture to chance and to start leading it on purpose. Keep blooming.